Today's daf is daf Nun Hey, and we'll begin where we left off yesterday, 6 lines down from the bottom, and we're continuing with this philosophical debate between the idol worshippers and the Chachamim. Shol Agrippa Sar Tzova Es Rabbi Gamliel. So the Sar Tzova, who is the head of the army of Agrippas, asks Rabbi Gamliel, Ksiv b'toraschem, ki Hashem Elokecha eish ochla hu kel kana, that your God is a jealous God, meaning he's jealous of the idols. Klum iskani el chacham b'chacham, v'gibar asher v'asher. You could be jealous of a person who's similar to you, but, if the idols are just stupidity, why would God be jealous of something that's totally stupid? Amalo. So Gamliel responds with a mashal. Em shalchal mashal. Lema davar domer. What is it similar? La'adam shenasa ish al ishta. A man marries a second wife. Chashuva mimeno. If the second wife is considered, in a higher social uh, status, then ein miskanaba. But pchusa mimeno miskanaba. The first wife says, "You married this lowlife." I mean, like, what's going on? Amalei Zunin. Zunin is apparently a Jew, but probably an idol worshiper. And he says to Rabbi Akiva, "Libi v'libcha yada davoros kolcham lespei mamish." Now, I have to admit, as you would certainly claim, that there's no meaning to or significance to idolatry. But yet, Hokachazinon Gavri Diosli Ki Mitavre, right? They enter into the temple of the pagans and they have mitavre. Mitavre is Miloshin Shvira. They have broken limbs. The Osu Ki Mitzamdi. And when they walk out of the pagan temple, lo and behold, they're healed. All their limbs are aligned. My time, how do we explain and justify this miracle? I remember Billy Graham. Does that name mean anything to you? Anyway. Em shalacham moshel. Lema dover dover. Li adam neman shahaya be'ir. So this is a reliable person that lives locally. They trusted him so much that whenever they deposited something in his presence, in his possession, they didn't even require doing so in the presence of witnesses, and they trusted that he would not deny that he received their object. There was a certain individual who apparently did not trust him, and always, when he deposited something in the possession of this man, he would do so in the presence of the Eidim so that this man would not have the chutzpah to deny that he received this deposit. But one occasion, shachach, he forgot the hifkid etzel below Eidim, and he deposited the article in his possession without witnesses. And Amrlo Ishto, so the wife of the Shomer, says to her husband, Bovenich Perenu, why not take this article for ourselves? Let's abscond with it. It's worth a lot of money. And if he claims that, you have his deposit, you'll deny it. There are no witnesses to contradict you. Amallah, so this honest fellow responds to his wife, we have a certain moral standard We are people of integrity. So because this fool made a mistake and he gave me this deposit without Eidim, therefore I'm going to violate my moral standards and give up on my level of integrity. Afkaz, so here in the Nivshal, Yisurim v'shoshem v'shagrin osa ala adam mashbian oson shelo telchu el biyom ploni. So punishment, which is meted out by a certain, I guess, angelic figure who brings suffering upon the sinner, has to take an oath when he's sent on this mission to mete out the punishment, that he'll only do it exactly the way he was commissioned to do it, which means Ela biyom ploni, only on a certain day, and lo teitzu el biyom ploni, ubisha plonis, val yedei ploni, val yedei sam ploni. In other words, everything is calculated. He's told when he has the mission and the obligation to mete out punishment, where and what exact date it is, and even the time of the day. And even if the patient will suffer anguish and yisurim at the hands of a physician, a certain physician, it's got to be that physician, and with such and such a drug. Kevan shegias manim lotzes, when a person that suffers and holach zel beis avodas kol chavim, so he's in a state of suffering, of anguish, and he goes to his place of his temple of idolatry. It turns out that at that moment, the mission of the angel of suffering had terminated. It was time for him, for this sufferer, to be relieved of his suffering. Amru Yisurim, Dinu Shalonetze, the Chozim V'Omer. So now the angel of suffering says that, I can't mete out punishment at this moment because I didn't have a commission to punish this person with Yisurim at that moment and in that place. And therefore, Chozim V'Omer M'chim B'nei Shota Zeh Osa Shlo Ka'ogen Anu Na'abed Shvu Asenu. So just because this individual is a shota, he's so stupid that he went to the temple of the pagans, and he thinks that the pagan deity is going to spare him of the punishment. Therefore, I don't do my job. I got to do what I got to do. V'hainu d'Omer Rabbi Yochanan, and this is the drush of Rabbi Yochanan. My dichsiv, what does the pasuk in Dvarim Perikov Ches mean when it says v'chaloim roim v'ne'monim? Interesting language of the Torah, that there are harshful illnesses, but they're faithful. What does it mean, faithful? Roim b'shlichusam, right? Their mission is to mete out punishment. That's very harsh. But ne'monim b'shvuasam, they have an oath that they take that only under certain circumstances, at a certain time, a certain place, they will mete out this punishment. Amalei Rava bar Yitzchak Rav Yehuda ha'ika beis avodas kol chacham b'asrin. I want to describe to you what goes on in the local pagan temple. Dechi mitztarich alma lemitra, when the world needs rain, there's a drought. Mischazilu bechelma, the idol appears to its followers in a dream, v'omer lahu, and tells them, shachatuli gavra v'aisi mitra, sacrifice a man to me. This is human sacrifice, and I will bring the rain. Shachatulo gavra v'yasa mitra. So Rava bar Rav Yitzchak wanted to ask Rav Rav Yehuda, how does this phenomenon occur? I mean, how could it be that because they complied with the wish of the idol to sacrifice a human being, therefore the rains came down? Amalei, so Rav Yehuda responds, Hashta iavi shachivna lo amri lechu ha milsa diamarav. I wanted to share with you something that I heard from Rav, and thank God I'm happy to tell you that I'm still alive to pass on this report. If I had died, I couldn't pass it on. And Rav darshans a posuk, my dechsiv, asher cholak Hashem Elokecha osam lechol ha'amim. And this posuk is a continuation of the pasuk that we saw before in Dvarim. Let me just double check that for a second. 1 second. Asher Cholak Hashem. Just 1 second. How come I don't find it? Yeah, there it is. The other pasuk was in Dvarim Chavches. This is in Dvarim Perek Daled, and it says that Asher Cholak Osam. I have apportioned to all the peoples of the earth under the entire heaven. Very strange pasuk. Malamed shechlikon b'dvarim k'dei l'tardon min ha'olam. So this has to do, as we mentioned at the end of yesterday's discussion, with what's called bechira chavshus, freedom of choice. So God is saying that I'm going to make it very attractive and enticing for idol worshippers to worship the idols by, in a sense, spreading out the sun, the moon, and the stars in the heavens, and they will look up at these celestial spheres and they will say, "Oh, these are gods, these are deities." And kidei l'tardim in olam. If they want to pursue idolatry, so be will it. They have the freedom of choice to do so. I'm not going to prevent them from doing so, and they'll be punished for it. Behind the Reish Lakish, a similar statement is reflected by Reish Lakish. My dechsiv. What does the pasuk mean in Mishlei? Im la leitzim hu yolitz v'la novim yiten chen. So leitzim are those who are very cynical, and they will act cynically. And if so, a person is humble, then he will find favor in the eyes of God. If somebody comes to defile himself, then God says, you know what? I'll open all the doors and provide for him whatever he needs to defile himself. And here the tumah is a reference to idolatry. I'll make it, accessible for him to worship the idol. There'll be the sun, the moon, the stars, and so forth and so on. But if a person comes to purify himself, then it's even greater than that. It's not just poschim lo. It's not just that God makes things available, but more than that, God will be Messiah lo. He will actually give him assistance from above. And now we get to the main topic for today and for tomorrow and for the day after and the day after that. And that is Yayin Nesach. So in a certain sense, we're going back to Masechet Avoda Zara after a little bit of a detour into philosophy. And, with great trepidation, we begin this journey into the laws of Yayin Nesach. Now, Yayin Nesach, in its biblical and original context, is Yayin that was used by the idol worshiper as a libation in front of his idol. And the Torah prohibits that under the law of Isser Hano. It's Cheren. However, there's a rabbinic subcategory of Yayin Nesef, which is called Stam Yenom. Stam Yenom is a Gzera D'Rabbanan, Otu Yayin Nesef Doraisa, in which the Rabbanan establish an Isser Hano, even if there was no libation, just that the idol worshiper came in contact with the Yayin. However, we have to ask ourselves, what is Yayin? At what point in the process of producing wine from grapes does it become Yayin, such that the idol worshiper, when he touches that wine, we don't know if it's wine yet, that juice that comes from the grapes, is it Stam Yena? And that is the question addressed by this Mishnah. Now, I did not have a chance to get a video on Google of how they make wine, how they press the grapes, and the juice of the grapes rolls down into these vats or into these cisterns, which is called a bar. And what do they do with the dregs and the sediments? How do they sift that out? I mean, it's a whole complicated process. So, bli neder, I don't promise. I'm going to try to send you a link if I can, because I think the visual element here would be very helpful. The Mishnah and the Gemara utilizes terminology that was very simple and understood in their time, and we have to translate it into our English and understand it. That's a little bit of a challenge. In any event, the Mishnah says, Lokchim gas beuta mina ovdei kol chavim. So one word I can translate for you, and that's the word gas, and that is the wine press. Like, for example, you could visit, archaeological digs here in Israel and see ancient wine presses. And the pressing of wine was a major occupation here in Israel because we're still, even to this day, producing wine. But what does the word beuta mean? Now, biut, the word biut is to kick or to stomp. So if you have something on the ground and you jump on it with your feet, that's called livot. And the grapes in the wine press were actually stomped upon by human feet. And those grapes are called beuta. Now, the grapes are collected and placed on the top of this wine press. But that's only after the first stage, which is called biut, where they actually, step on. You've seen it. If you go up to the Golan, they'll take you for a tour and they'll probably tell you to take your socks off. Have you ever done it? It's a lot of fun. Anyway, so that's what they do. Now, at that point, after they trod upon the grapes still have to be pressed. They've been, so to speak, softened at stage one. Now, the grapes that are trodden upon are set up on the top, which let's call it a mound, otherwise known in the Gemara's language as a tapuach. And then there's an actual pressing, which means there are heavy boards that will press upon the grapes and the wine starts flowing out. Now, it drains out into a receptacle. From that receptacle, it will go down to a bar. And clearly, once it goes down to the bar, it has the status of yayin, even though there's still sediments mixed in that have to be siphoned out. Our Mishnah, which by the way is called a Mishnah Rishona, which means that there was a later Mishnah that retracted what we're going to learn in this Mishnah. But according to the Mishnah Rishona, our Mishnah, despite the fact that the idol worshiper comes in contact with the grapes and even the juice that comes out of the grapes at this early stage, nevertheless, it's not yet yayin. And therefore, lokchim, at this point, there's no iser of stam yenom, even though there was direct contact between the idol worshiper and the grapes and the juice that came out of the grapes. The afal pishu notel biyado, even though he's going to take these grapes that were partially softened by the process of trotting on them, and he's going to lift them up and place it by hand, manually, onto this mound, the no snola pakuach, because here's the main principle of the Mishnah, Eno ose yayinesach ad sheyered lebar. At what point is it called yayin? It's only after the, let's call it stages 1 and 2. When we get to stage 3, it goes down to the bar. At stage 1, the akum tread upon the grapes. At stage 2, he picked up the grapes and put them on top of the mound, and there the weight of the planks of wood would crush down on the grapes. And now the yayin oozes out down to the bar. It only becomes yayin when it's down in the bar. As I state, that's what it says in the Mishnah. Yared labar, however, once the yayin, or let's call it the grape juice, goes down into the bar, it becomes yayin. And masha bebar os, whatever wine went down into this bar, that is already stam yenom. That's os. You can't benefit from it, can't sell it, nothing. However, hashar mutar, there still is, shall we say, the balance or the balance of the juice that hasn't yet gone down to the bar, even though it's already in the process of oozing down and draining into a basin on the bottom, from the basin down to the bar, but it hasn't yet reached the bar. It's not yayin, it's grape juice. And grape juice is not included under stam yenom. Only yayin is, and it only becomes yayin according to the Mishnah Rishonah that we're learning now when it goes down to the bar. We're going to see soon that Rav Huna is going to change some of the elements in this equation. Okay, now in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words in the Mishnah, we address a different element in the equation here. And we have to introduce another principle in halacha that really has nothing to do with yayin nesach. And that is a principle which is also ligrom tuma lechulin shebe'eretz Yisrael. Okay. Now, there's kodshim, or hegdesh we'll call it, truma that has status of kodshim, and there's chulin. The Torah prohibits taking hegdesh or truma and being metameit. That is an Isa Doraisa. The Rabbanan extended it to chulin. And this has to do with the Prushim that were very, very careful about eating chulin bitara, even chulin, which you're allowed to eat chulin tmeim. There's no prohibition, but they were careful to be marchik themselves from any tuma, and especially from tuma of kodshim. So therefore, they ate chulin bitara. So the Rabbanan made a gzera that we're not allowed to cause, even indirectly, chulin in Eretz Yisrael to become tamei. So our Mishnah says, "Dorchim im ha'ovek lacham begas." Now, the gas itself, the wine press, is tamei, and therefore it will transfer tuma over to the grape juice and the wine. And if a Jew participates with the akum in the process of dricha, which means to stomp on the grapes in order to get the juice out and create wine, then he is in effect being gorem tuma to chulin in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore it should be prohibited. And yet the Mishnah Rishona, permits it. And I'll tell you why I think the Mishnah Rishona permits it. Because the Jew is not being gorem tuma. Because once the grapes were brought to the gas, they already were makabel tuma. Now the akum, the goy, he's not prohibited. He's not enjoined from being metame anything, any chulin, even in Eretz Yisrael. So you're treading, the Jew treading on the grapes is not in any way abetting a crime, because for the guy there's no crime, and he's not causing tumah because it already became tamei before he got there. So again, just to summarize, as we move on in the Mishnah to Amud Beis, the Mishnah is addressing two different elements. The Chassam Sofer has apparently a whole shtickle Torah to explain the connection between the two, the interdependence. But as far as we're concerned, there are two independent issues in halacha. One is the iser of benefiting from yayin nesach or stam yaino midrabanim, and at what point is the grape juice considered yayin, and also midin yayin nesach. And the second issue about the iser being gorem tuma to chulin in Eretz Yisrael.